Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed a very good lunch, and so great to see so many of you here for the afternoon sessions. I think we'll get straight back into it with this panel of 5 bosses of Chinese companies here in New Zealand. Welcome. We've heard a very New Zealand-centric story earlier today, and it's fabulous to have you all here. I guess, Terry Lee, you've been involved with New Zealand for quite some time now, going back to Puncheon days, and in fact you were, I think if I recall rightly, you might have spoken at our first summit in 2012, so welcome back to the stage. But this time you're there with Milk New Zealand as Managing Director. I guess what we really want to know is, how did COVID-19 affect your business in New Zealand?
COVID-19 was very big challenge for Milk New Zealand for the early of this year. So it broke out very suddenly, and Chinese shut down suddenly. Do not allow companies and people make some preparation for that. So it's very challenging when we transport and piled huge amount of product for the highest season in China, which is the Chinese New Year's Day. But actually, this season turned to be the worst or the quietest season in our history. This is the challenge for everyone. During that time, hundreds of containers were detained in the port, and we do not have any access to the logistics between the countries, between the province, even between the cities. At that time, shelf life is also a very big challenge, because we have a long supply chain from New Zealand back to China. This caused a huge problem, like cash flow. During that time, we could not pay our suppliers in New Zealand in time for a huge amount of money. Sometimes the overdue payment is over 1 million. But fortunately, we had support from our New Zealand partners, so we survived well. And during that time, we also donated a huge amount of product to hospitals in Wuhan, to medical teams from all over China to Wuhan. And we're happy that we made the contribution to the fighting of the virus. And we also got support from our shareholders, from banks, from our partners. I think during this time, the partnership is very important to create some mutual understanding when we're facing the difficulties and sudden challenges like this. Logistics is another challenge. So shipping lines, airlines cut their logistics service dramatically and suddenly, and our export was affected. The supply chain was interrupted, both in New Zealand and in China. And of course, the cost increased dramatically as well. And we have to manage how we can maintain our margin, maintain our quality, and maintain our service in a good level. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. It's now my pleasure to introduce Lily Wang. We heard earlier today who was boss or GM of China's Southern Airlines in Auckland. We heard earlier today from Greg Foran about what a terrible disaster Air New Zealand had on its hands. Just now we have only 3 airlines flying to China once a week each. So how has the crisis affected your airline in New Zealand?
Yes, this morning the CEO of Air New Zealand has already explained how stressful for him. I think it's not only for Air New Zealand, it's for all the industry of aviation. I have been working for the airlines for 26 years. I think this COVID-19 crisis is the most stressful situation for me. Before the COVID-19, we operated 21 flights per week from China to Guangzhou. From Guangzhou to not only Auckland and Christchurch. But now, because of the demand declined and border restriction, we only operate one passenger flight now. But even though we keep the connection to now, from February to now, in these 6 months, we help more than 4,800 New Zealand citizens and residents come home. Before the COVID-19, last year, we carried more than 340,000 passengers on our route. And besides, excluding Chinese market, we via Canton Road, we help New Zealand connecting the rest of the world. For example, Europe, South of Asia, and Southeast Asia. And we carried more than 100,000 passengers to New Zealand and from New Zealand. But I calculate the data. After COVID-19 broke out in these 6 months, our passenger volume down 90%. But flights for us is not only a connection between these two countries, it's also like the essential connection for the people and trade exchange. So from April, we launched the cargo-only flights to New Zealand. And now we have 3 cargo-only flights per week. I hope next month we can launch the 4th. During this COVID-19 period, we carried more than 2,300 ton cargoes inbound and outbound New Zealand. I think inbound things is like the essential material or half-made, semi-made material, and also some raw materials needed from this market. And also we carried a lot of goods import to China, something like dairy product, seafood, and healthy product. We are thinking what we do is to make our promise to keep the reliable and a sustainable connection between these two countries.
Thank you. And moving along to Gavin Yan, who has been right at the forefront of Trademonster, which is a complete end-to-end service for suppliers and brands wanting to break into the Chinese e-commerce market. Trademonster has employees in both Auckland and Shanghai, 52 full-time employees, turnover last year slightly less than $50 million. So how did COVID-19 impact on you? One would imagine you could have profited by this or not.
Yeah, we're still increasing our revenue, and so month on month, and but we do have experienced the breakdown of the global supply chain, and so for us it's mainly affecting us for our supply chain and logistic. So normally we have a secure 1 month inventory, and because we were so panicked about this lockdown in New Zealand and the uncertainty about this supply chain, so we have secure 3 months supply. Then what happened is everyone is panic. Production is also running, and then we realized after 2 months we realized we overstocked the product. Everyone has a lot of product, so that is one thing. Secondly is that we have experienced the cost of the logistic, and we are 100% exporting an e-commerce business, and we fully rely on our logistic service and partnering like China South Airlines, Air New Zealand, providing us a lot of service for us, especially for air freight. and the cost is increasing and dramatically. So that has been affecting us. So demand in China, we see strong demand, and still people are buying New Zealand-made product, and there's a change of the behavior, but we can see the demand is still there. But there's a challenge for the supply chain and logistic part we are dealing with every day. Yeah.
And Sherry Yan, COSCO's chief in New Zealand, as you might all well know, COSCO has been in the shipping business here for over 30 years. The initial vessel size was around 400 TEU. Today it's around 4,500 TEU, so it's gone up 10 times. Our vessels call fortnightly as well. And cargo volumes have also increased a huge amount over that time. So Sherry has been leading a remarkable team, really, which has been on the ground here and assisting exporters get to market. So, Sherry, the pandemic did force a slowdown in international trade, with global container volumes in the first half of 2020 estimated to be down by 10%, which is quite a bit. So what's been the impact on COSCO's business in New Zealand?
Okay. In New Zealand, we quickly saw the effect of the COVID with the port throughput down by some 10 to 11% in the first quarter. This is largely due to the inbound volume reduction after the shutdown in China post-Chinese New Year. Specifically, the impact to COSCO Shipping New Zealand's business evolved across the different period of the crisis. Initially, when the shutdown in China post-Chinese New Year created a very slow resumption of the inbound volume to New Zealand. As our network rely on good utilization for both inbound and outbound, this put some significant pressure on the viability of our service and led to some vessel schedule blanks. There was also concern about the supply of the empty equipment to our New Zealand exporters, while the inbound volume decreased. However, by the time the New Zealand announced lockdown in late March, the volume ex-China to New Zealand had begun to strong move again. So for our business, then the concern was those inbound containers would not be able to uplifted and unpacked. That will also bring some potential pressure risk for the supply of the empty equipment for our New Zealand exports. So in general, the carriers' service in New Zealand have been affected by the COVID to varying degrees. The change of cargo flows, both inbound and outbound, over the past 5 months have meant many adjustments of our service have been necessary. For example, some seasonal adjustment to the schedules were occurring. Largely, however, with the good coordination with New Zealand ports, depots, transport operators, carriers' service into and out of New Zealand has managed to maintain the capacity and frequency. This is to allow the New Zealand importer and exporters to continue their business and also ensure the essential goods continue to move efficiently, just like our good customer Terry here. We can absolutely committed to make sure your dairy products get to Chinese consumers, so the babies are not going to hungry. In addition, our inbound equipment crucial to supply our export cargo was uplifted and retained in sufficient numbers to avoid issues. And our service network was regularly reviewed to ensure that the demand for both inbound and outbound were being met, whilst our service network still remaining economically viable. And despite this very challenging circumstance, we are very grateful that our employees are all safe and well. With the strong support and commitment from COSCO shipping leadership, and also with our modern IT infrastructure and complete global service network, our dedicated staff were working well from home during level 4 and level 3, and back to the office 100% from level 2. We are trying to do our best to coordinate the customer needs. We was also moved quickly at this time of disruption, try to assist our inbound shippers who affected by the lockdown level 4 to solve their problems for their encountered. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Finally, across the panel, Yanek from Huawei. Huawei is well known in New Zealand, of course, but how has COVID-19 pandemic affected Huawei, both probably at a global and a local level, and what the impact might be on the customer base as well?
Thanks, Fran. As a technology company, our technology connects 1/3 of population worldwide. So our number one priority during the COVID pandemic is to make sure our customers' network runs smoothly. And that's also part of our social responsibilities. And our team is really busy and using our latest technology, work closely with our customers, fighting together in the front line. So I think we have managed very well for that. We just published our first half year financial reports. The financial numbers also showed us our customer need our technology and services more than other time. So globally, our first half year's revenue reached 64 billion, and we achieved 13.1% year-on-year growth. That's actually more than our expectation from beginning of the year. Locally, as you know, we are not as big as Frontiero and Air New Zealand. We have 130 people. We reached $31 million US dollar revenue. That's pretty good from our perspective. So I think from the operational point of the company, I can see that every day Huawei New Zealand is changing in the good direction. We didn't have too many problems for working remotely. We were very natural for working from home or using our IT system. But we did pay a lot of attention on our people during this time, because part of our team classed as essential services, they need to get ready when the customer need it. They need to go to the field and helping customers. So we pay a lot of attention on their health and safeties. And as a company, my feeling is in the past several years, Huawei become a big machine. If we look at the positive side of the pandemic, we can see that this is maybe a good exercise for Huawei in global and the local level. For example, I used to have a lot of international travels. Now I can more focus on my business and my customer in New Zealand. We used to have a board meeting maybe for 3 full days, but now we can complete the same meeting in 3 hours online. So apparently just shows us we don't need so many meetings as this basically cost. So that's my answer.
I was going to say, I mean, there's obviously been some lessons you've all learnt through the pandemic about the way your businesses operate, and also where you can drive efficiencies at a time when perhaps the customer appetite isn't quite so great. And I wondered, Yanek, whether you could just tell us a little bit more about that story of operational efficiency that you're developing in New Zealand?
Yeah, during the pandemic, everything is about fighting with the time or efficiency. I can give you some of the examples what our team did globally. In Wuhan, if I remember correctly, from beginning of the year, our Huawei Wuhan office received a task. We have to deliver the entire networks and the connectivity for 2 brand new hospitals. And usually such project will last maybe 2 months or 3 months. But during the lockdown, we are not able to send more people. That's why from very beginning, we designed the networks in a very modularized approach. So that's why our people in the front, they can install the networks like Lego bricks. So finally, the project actually, they asked us to deliver in 7 days. Finally, we spent 3 days to deliver the project, as it was quite impressive. And also some other cases like fighting with efficiency is, maybe the traditional CT diagnosis takes probably 12 minutes to get the results, and another 2 minutes for doctor to type up the report. And we provide a kind of AI-aided technology to help the report can be finished in 20 seconds. And then the doctor can review the reports, cross-checking, and finally confirm the results. So that gave a lot of efficiency for the hospital and the medical professionals, and also lower the patient's waiting time and lower the risk of the infected people in the hospitals. Locally, there's many similar stories. For example, we help our customer in New Zealand universities. They have some problem to deliver the content and online courses to students, international students who stuck in China, because from very beginning, this kind of system were not designed for teaching students overseas. So we offer our technology to help them to have the regular contact with their international students. I believe such stories happen every day in Huawei in different countries. We just try to do more what we can do for our customer and partners.
Yeah, thank you. I just turn to Terry Lee now, and Terry, you've also picked up some lessons through this crisis as well that you might want to share with the audience.
Okay, thank you. So I said cash flow, it was the biggest problem during the difficulties. So I like to start with cash flow. The lessons we learned is that you need to be prepared for the worst scenario when something happens. Just like you need to prepare an umbrella during the sunny days, not try to buy an umbrella when it starts to rain. It's very important to keep frank and keep transparent to your partners, to your staffs, and most importantly, to yourself. You say, this is the difficulties, and this is the plans we have to make, and this is the procedures, and this is plan A, and this is the plan B. During that time, I made a constant call with our suppliers nearly every day to update our cash flow plan. And I made the staff meeting every day to let them know what we are facing, what is going to be the most important task of this week, of today, and of next step. Another thing is that you need to make careful planning of your cost control. You have to save every dollar, every penny on all the way of your supply chain. Not only to cut the cost, more importantly is to increase the operational efficiency. You know, one mistake can have an effect on other operation steps and make that a disaster. So if you have a better planning, have a better management of the operation to avoid one small risk that will save your thousands of dollars or even more. The third is that you need to follow the market trend. You need to have a very close observation of what is the real need of your customers. When the pandemic outbreak, we have two Chinese experts telling people the most important thing is to enhance your own immune system by eating more high-quality proteins like dairy, like beef. So I think New Zealand and ZTE should give them 2 big medals. So they are not only give good advice to 1.4 billion Chinese people, but also promote New Zealand as a very good source of high quality protein. And then we focus on our high protein product, high protein UHT milk and high protein milk powder. And we also try to use new selling and promotion method like live stream. Last week, in one live stream led by Mr. Li Jiaqi, a very famous KOL on Alibaba platform, we sold 28 containers of UHT milk within 1 minute. Wow. So that is a very attractive result, and I think it's worth trying.
Yeah, we're hearing some very upbeat stories here. Lily, just looking into your crystal ball, what do you see as the prospects for the resumption of international aviation links, particularly around that air bridge, which everyone talks about between China and New Zealand?
Because the trend of COVID-19 is not so clear now, fortunately, New Zealand's achievement in fighting against COVID-19 is marvelous. And the life in China has basically resumed. According to the data of CAAC, China domestic travel level has already recovered to 65% as the same period of last year. And in the first half of the year, the China domestic travel has already recovered to the 45% at the same time of the last year. Yesterday, I chatting with my colleagues. When you see the situation in fighting COVID-19 in China, you will see our onboard booking of lobster. Because now we have a lobster booking to China, so it's now for recovery. For the recovery about the links of New Zealand and China, I feel confident because in last year there were more than 169 million Chinese people has international travel experience. But comparison for the traveler to New Zealand is only 400,000. So the outbound market in China is very big and full of potential. Meanwhile, China is New Zealand's the biggest trade partner and students' resources. So we are thinking, we are looking forward to the gradual opening of the border. For China Southern, New Zealand and Australia markets is our strategy market because we are the biggest airlines in China. So we can use our channels and advantage to promote the destination of New Zealand. And we are we will timely adjust the capacity according to the demand recovery. So we are we want to try our best to continue to contribute to the development of New Zealand and China's relationship and trade and people-to-people exchange.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, we heard from Greg Foran this morning that people in New Zealand don't wear masks when they fly on planes. What is the situation within China?
But in China, not only our crew and a passenger have to pass the strict, temperature check, and also all of them on board should wear the mask. So we are thinking it's the good way to prevent the infect of the COVID-19. And also we have implemented very strict measures on board, because such of measures is, we think is benefits for not only our staff and also the safety of the passenger on board.
Yeah, very different here. We might be being a little carefree, perhaps. One of the issues, obviously, Gavin, I mean, how is the recovery period going for you with the China-New Zealand business, with sales?
Yeah, we, as I mentioned earlier, that we still having a huge increase on the sales, but during this last 3 or 4 months, that we realized that what we find very challenging is that how we adjust our strategy in terms of the product strategy, pricing strategy, marketing strategy to the changing of the consumer behavior in China, and also the market demand. And this is changing dramatically, and we haven't actually expected this this kind of a situation. And for example, one of our clients has a lipstick, and during the Chinese traditional New Year festival, and it is a good season. And for our experience, that the consumer, they might Chinese young consumers, they buy one lipstick, one color. They often buy another two for a different color. Some of them, they're crazy. They want to collect 20 different colors all together. But after this kind of a pandemic, we have seen that the consumer, they may only buy one color, most of them, or they don't even buy because they wear a mask. They don't use the lipstick. So that is for us. We haven't actually prepared for this kind of changing of the consumer behaviors, and that is bring a lot of more challenge to our business. So in return, we need to carefully monitor about the market demand, and working closely with our partner, with our customer, and to adjust our forecast, and also to actively, proactively, and running the different promotions and marketing campaigns like live streaming. And live streaming, we have the practice every week, and so it's going to be a daily schedule, no work operation plan, and it's becoming very, very important to our business. And yeah, so I think for us as a startup and small company, and I think maybe it's good for us as a small size company to adjust our strategy quickly. And even though we find that the China market, the demand is still there, and how we can catch up the changing of the consumer, and how the market demand is changing, we can quickly adjust our strategy, and that bring more challenge to us. So that is for our opinion. Summary: China market, big demand for New Zealand product, but you have to be on the ground. So I learned from this morning the Greek. So thinking globally, acting locally. So that is something we think we will do.
Thank you. Sherry, the epidemic has obviously had an impact on global supply chains, but what has this meant in terms of the shipping industry? Have you had to make any transformations there? What do you see happening ahead of us.
Okay. Well, the crisis has a deeper influence on the global supply chain. And I think this also will accelerate the development of the global trade landscape and reshape the shipping industry. And therefore, for shipping lines, we need to seize the growth opportunities with the transformative and innovative measures to face the post-pandemic new normal. We believe under current epidemic, the digital the current epidemic will accelerate the digital transformation for the shipping industry. Yeah, it is foreseeable not only the shipping lines will shape the digital products to satisfy the higher market requirement, but also the smart ports, warehouse yards will also enter a new round of development windows. And furthermore, the new normal will also push the shipping lines to develop the strategies beyond the ocean. We now try to provide our customers the end-to-end logistics solutions. Yeah. And for New Zealand, the third quarter from July to September is likely to be most challenging. And the consumers are waiting to see what the economic situation is before they spend. And the retailers are waiting to see what the demand might be before they place orders. So the hope is that once we get through this period and see what Christmas quarter brings, then the recovery of the signs of recovery might start to emerge. And another aspect of the living with the new normal is we think now it is very hard to forecast with the certainty, domestically and globally. The pandemic continuing growth, so that will impact on the logistic will continue to test us for some time to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Yanek, the issue of 5G was touched on this morning by the Prime Minister, and it's obviously been a major issue for Huawei in New Zealand over the years. We've seen the moves out of the United Kingdom government. What is the situation with Huawei and 5G in New Zealand right now?
I was asked by many people for this question. I just want to try to give you my view on that. As a technology, I think 5G will have immense opportunity in New Zealand. It's a very good technology. It can enable not only our industry, but many other industries, such as fishery, or dairy, or transportation, or tourist, many different technologies. But at the moment, if you ask me if we are pushing for 5G in New Zealand, we are not pushing for 5G. Mainly because, like other businesses, our customer, we just come out of a COVID pandemic. Our customer is fighting for recovery of their business. They're fighting for reduce the cost and get more revenue from the business. As long as we solve their problems, and I think we can use any technology. So currently, as I understand from my customers, they are trying to use the most of their current assets. So that's why, from the current understanding, we think 5G is not the top priority in this country. In terms of the UK decision, recent days I had a lot of discussion with my equivalent position in UK. I think the UK decision on Huawei 5G will heavily impact our business in UK, and will heavily impact the 5G rollout in UK as well. And I think it's still very short time to assess the whole impact of this decision. We still need more time to analyze that. In New Zealand, we are more confident. That's also because we have a different legislation, we have different procedure in New Zealand, and we operate our business for 15 years in New Zealand. We understand the market, we just love our customer, and we think this market is very innovative. If you have good technology, my customer will buy it. I think the very important, the biggest value for us for this market is we always bring the best technology and the best essence to New Zealand. And if we keep doing that, I think this market and our customer will welcome us as a partner. So I think we will continue remain and commit our commitments to New Zealand.
Thank you. Yeah. So just on the question of foreign investment in New Zealand, Terry, you have been in the forefront of arguing for a relaxed overseas investment paradigm in New Zealand, and it has now changed a bit. And I'm not just saying this is a China thing, but everything has now become pretty political. What sort of effect do you think the current regime and changes will have on the external view of investors of New Zealand?
Thank you. So I think we are very lucky to be in New Zealand. So New Zealand is one of the leading countries can declare victory on COVID-19 pandemic in the world. And this morning we heard the very constructive comments from both our Prime Minister and the Chinese ambassador on the future of China-New Zealand relationship. So I think New Zealand is well positioned to attract high quality foreign investment from all over the world, not only from China. But we also need to understand that New Zealand has a very special, very complicated OIO system. In 2010, I think, Pension were well challenged by a lot of New Zealanders. I think maybe 0.5% of the people sitting in this room are not confident, are not support Pension's acquisition of Creeper Farms at that time. And now I can proudly telling you that Pension Farm Groups, the 29 dairy farms in New Zealand, are in the leading position in terms of the environment protection, in terms of the health and safety, in terms of the animal welfare, in terms of the public relationship in New Zealand agri business. And we delivered beyond what public and New Zealand government expected before. And I think this, thank you. Now we're driving to become the leading companies in efficiency and cost control. And we export about 4,000 containers to China. And this all starts from the very beginning of the investment. So today, I think if New Zealand can be more relaxed on the OIO regulations, can open your arms more widely to high quality investors from all over the world, we will have the opportunity. We will have the best opportunity maybe in the world in this time to attract tech companies from Silicon Valley, to attract finance companies from Tokyo, from New York, from London, to our small paradise, which is free of COVID-19 virus. This will bring huge opportunities to every one of us, and this will lift New Zealand economy structure to a new level. So this is my comment, and I think we enjoyed a lot of the special position we have in New Zealand. And we shared our experience, we shared our lessons, and we shared our knowledge with all our partners throughout New Zealand to China. And I'm not only a fighter of an easier OIO application, but I'm also a very enthusiastic promoter for an open world, for the globalization, and for the friendship between New Zealand and China, for a good future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's well said, Terry. Others on the panel, just how do you see the future between China and New Zealand? Perhaps Gavin, and the immense opportunities commercially and people to people.
Yeah, we obviously we see ourselves as an e-commerce service provider, and 100% digital and 100% export. And China market obviously is our the 95% of our market over there, and we see the future because there's a lot of uncertainty brought up by the epidemic. And but what we can see relatively certain is that the go digitalization is quite quite a confidence that is going to be further expanding in the future, and also supply chain technology is also the area that is going to expand quickly in China and New Zealand. So we are very much focusing on this, blend those elements into our future strategy. One of the example was that we frequently have a customer complaint from our the platform. They have received a milk powder, and then they take a photo. They said, "Hey, there's a fly in the milk powder. It's still alive." And so, how we deal with this kind of the situation can be very difficult, because you cannot prove that this is originally from New Zealand. This is went through a legitimate supply chain. So one of our initiative is working with a blockchain technology company to introduce the blockchain technology into our cross-border e-commerce and the logistics system, and to give the consumer more assurance about the product, where they can see it's from which farm and which warehouse, and into how they delivered into them. And also because of the faults of the whole supply chain into the whole supply chain, that with the blockchain technology that we will be able to prove to the bank, to platform, to our partner, each single unit of the product movements. So that can bring all the ecosystem player and a lot of more useful information, transparent, and we can do a lot more in the future. So I think that is something we already touch on, and we hope that this can give us more advantages, not only with China, but also a global competitive advantages in the future. Yeah, so that is for us.
I'd just like to ask our remaining three panelists your thoughts about and hopes for the relationship and your businesses in New Zealand. And perhaps if I can start with you, Lily.
Previously, when we're talking about the business, we always pay highly focus on the consumer demand. But now, after COVID-19 broke out, the most important things we should focus on is like the policy of the border restriction. So how to say, but the safety of the local residents is priority. So we hope the border can be opened not only for New Zealand and also for China. It can be gradually opened, maybe to some low-risk country, maybe to some typical group, for example, like students. Now we are in the situation is that, how to say, the crisis in Chinese combined with two words, danger and opportunity. So now we are in the danger situation, but it's also an opportunity for us to tighten our relationship and to uniting, fighting the difficulties. I think it is the ways we can overcome the difficulty and can do better for the future.
As we can see, both China and New Zealand have a very good relationship, and also the trade development very fast. And in China now presented 1/3 of the total export volume to China, the 1/3 of the total New Zealand cargo value, and also for import is also the number one import market. About 20%, and we COSCO Shipping as a shipping line, as a trade bridge, connect China and New Zealand. We are always there. We are here for more than 32 years, and we are very positive, and we are always here dedicated to support the New Zealand importer and exporters to help you to ship your cargoes in and out of New Zealand.
Finally, Yanek.
We don't have any doubt that New Zealand and China will keep really good relationship. And as a company, we want to see more and more New Zealand company goes to Chinese market. We want to see more and more Chinese company come to New Zealand market and set out their business. And I think we can do a lot of things to help them. And also we want to see that more technology we can work or we can do for New Zealand communities. Like this year after the pandemic, we are thinking what we can do more for Kiwi communities. We started a project, we call it Tech for All, which means technology for everyone. For example, we just started one project, we call it Kiwi for Kiwi, and we use some technology to help people and organizations in New Zealand to protect the Kiwi bird. So such project, I think we just need to continue and deliver our not only the businesses' responsibilities, also the social responsibilities in New Zealand. I think we just need to continue what we did in the past.
Thank you. I'd really like to thank all the panel, Gavin, Lily, and Terry, and Sherry, and Yanek. It's been great having you up here today, and I also thank Lisa Lee and David Wang, who not here this afternoon, but also for the role you have played and helped facilitate the panellists today. It is, some of you have been on the stage here before, others it's your first time, and I hope it won't be your last time. It's been great hearing those insights into just how you've been dealing with the pandemic in your businesses, but also those thoughts for the future as significant investors in New Zealand. Thank you.